Imagine being selected to spend an entire night with the most influential man in the empire. Yet instead of a romantic evening, your experience begins with silence, constant monitoring, and an inflexible checklist supervised by guards and officials. There is no privacy, no freedom to make personal decisions, and absolutely no margin for mistakes. Welcome to the secret world of the Imperial Harem. Nestled within the Forbidden City, deep in the core of ancient China's royal palaces, the emperor's bedroom was one of the most rigorously controlled places in the entire empire. Far from an indulgent refuge, it was regulated by an intricate system of rituals, political concerns, and a constant fear of betrayal. At the heart of this realm were the women of the harem, concubines, consorts, and empresses, each held tightly by centuries-old tradition and constantly observed under the strict rules of palace law. Unlike common perceptions, the imperial harem was not an uninhibited environment of pleasure. Every intimate moment the emperor shared with his consorts was meticulously arranged by palace officials, senior porter bodyguards, and an extensive administrative apparatus. While the emperor wielded absolute authority in the public eye, even his private times were deeply governed by long-standing regulations that shaped every detail. Every night was guided by a sacred routine. Once the emperor completed his evening meal and official responsibilities, he would return to his private quarters. Awaiting him was a ceremonial tray, an item both modest in appearance and rich in symbolic significance. This tray was brought by the chief porter, marking the beginning of a carefully orchestrated ritual that set the tone for the remainder of the evening. Each of the jade plaques was carefully inscribed with the name of a concubine or consort from the imperial court. This was no random gesture. The placement of these plaques was thoughtfully arranged, and although the emperor seemed to pick freely, the reality was often more about politics than personal preference. Powerful individuals within the palace, such as trusted porters or court advisors, sometimes organized the plaques so that certain women stood out more prominently. Through this subtle influence, they could steer the emperor's choices, support favored families, or preserve important alliances. When the emperor chose a plaque and casually turned it over, this simple action signaled the start of a meticulously planned process for the selected woman. Once informed of her selection, the concubine would immediately begin her preparations. This was no easy task, since she was required to bathe in water infused with rare herbs and oils believed to purify the body and boost fertility. These baths were not merely for cleanliness, but were spiritual rituals designed to wash away misfortune and ready her to serve the emperor. Afterward, attendants would dress her in a silk garment, often a single robe or blanket embroidered with symbols of good luck, harmony, or fertility. Next came personal grooming, where her hair was carefully combed, her skin lightly powdered, and every detail perfected to enhance her presence. Before she left her quarters, a senior porter performed a brief final check. Inspection ensured that no jewelry, ornaments, or accessories capable of concealing a blade or poison were present, as the emperor's safety was the utmost concern. Even the slightest threat was treated with great seriousness. Then the concubine was gently placed on a stretcher draped with silk and carried not by common servants, but by trusted porters. These men, devoted solely to the throne, silently escorted her through the shadowy halls of the Forbidden City toward the emperor's private chambers. Although being carried might sound graceful, it was a tactical choice. The palace enforced strict rules to prevent any concubine from hiding dangerous items beneath her clothing. By lifting her above the ground, the possibility of anything concealed in her shoes was eliminated, and her freedom to move unpredictably was restricted. Once inside the emperor's room, another inspection was usually conducted before she was carefully laid upon the imperial bed. No words were exchanged unless the emperor began speaking. This protocol was not merely about control, but underscored the hierarchy. The concubine remained silent unless spoken to, reinforcing her position as a servant to the emperor's will. Time spent with the emperor followed strict limits, typically lasting about 1 hour. Outside the chamber, a porter stood alert and softly announced when the session was nearly over. If there was no response, the porter would quietly enter to ensure the emperor's welfare. Every detail was meticulously arranged to guarantee protection at all times. The ruler's life was carefully managed to maintain order within the palace. When a visit ended, the concubine was once again wrapped in silk and taken back to her own quarters. She was forbidden from lingering or speaking during this process. This practice ensured that no single woman spent more time than others with the emperor, preventing favorites from gaining excessive influence. The Imperial Harem was one of the most closely scrutinized areas of court life, with every action of a woman being recorded meticulously. Detailed logs noted not only who spent time with the emperor, but also the duration and timing of their visits. If a child was conceived, this careful monitoring guaranteed the clear and undisputed lineage of the imperial family. Even the most natural parts of life, such as menstruation, were monitored intensively. A concubine could not be chosen during her menstrual cycle, as Chinese tradition saw this as bringing misfortune or disturbing the emperor's vital energy. To avoid awkward situations, women created discreet ways to show they were unavailable. This included wearing gold rings, passing folded notes, tying red ribbons around their wrists, or placing red lanterns outside their doors. Despite these subtle signals, the system was vulnerable to manipulation. Some ambitious concubines, desperate to win favor, concealed their cycles and risked harsh consequences. In response, Porter was tasked with tracking menstrual cycles and overseeing the health of every woman, adding yet another level of control over their lives. Life in the palace could appear magnificent, but was fraught with danger, especially because the emperor's affection was a power too intense to handle without risk. One woman received an excessive amount of attention. Rivalries developed within political groups, often centered around favored concubines. This situation sparked tension, jealousy, and occasionally open rebellion. One of the most intense episodes in Chinese history unfolded during the rule of an emperor obsessed with eternal life. He compelled his concubines to take part in perilous alchemical tests, exposing them to poisonous substances. Many fell seriously ill, while others perished. Ultimately, a group of women desperate to escape his cruelty attempted to kill him. Their scheme failed, and the retribution was brutal. Those involved were sentenced to the harshest punishments recognized by imperial law. This grim episode reminded the entire court that even in the most splendid surroundings, the risks were immense. Not all tales from the harem involved uprisings. Some were stories of love, loss, and the cost of beauty. Yang Gui, one of the most renowned concubines in Chinese history, captured the affection of Emperor Xuanzong during the Tang dynasty. Her beauty was famous, as was her power. However, her ascent led to jealousy, political turmoil, and hostility from influential officials. When the empire faced rebellion, the military held her responsible and called for her execution to protect the throne. The emperor consented, and Yang Gui was taken to a temple where she died. Whether it was by her own choice or under royal command remains uncertain. Her story transformed into legend, preserved in poems, paintings, and operas, remembered not for politics, but for her enduring allure. Caught in the currents of history as a woman adored by an emperor, yet despised by the court, and etched into memory forever, the intimate customs of the Imperial Harem represented far more than mere ritual. They symbolized authority, heritage, and the fight to endure. In a realm where power was constantly vulnerable, even the closest moments were planned with precision and vigilance. From hushed hallways to meticulously placed jade tokens, each element revealed a system where feelings were always subordinate to responsibility. Today, the Imperial Harem continues to intrigue as one of the most captivating chapters in Chinese history.